is no bell till you ring it. A song is no song till you sing it. And love in your heart isn't put there to stay. You know that. Love isn't love till you give it away. That little seed that I gave to some of you, I have more to help us to grow. Did you know that every one of us started as a tiny little seed? And we had to have something to help us grow. Nurturing, sunlight, love. And sometimes we didn't get enough water. And our little roots didn't take very well. And the land may have been parched. And we began to wither instead of flourish. Everything that we know started as a little seed. Even me and even you. And I look at you flourishing plants out there. Who helped you? Who was the human sanctuary in your life that made you feel so secure and loved? It might not have been the wisest person in the world, but who was that mentor to you that believed in you, that watered you, that nourished the soil and warmed the soil where you were? Who was that person? Do you know who it is? They're called human sanctuaries. And that's what you are now to others. And human sanctuaries never feel that they're the wisest of them all. And human sanctuaries never know that they might be hearing the secret that somebody whispers into their ear. And you hold it fast. And you water it. And you nurture it. And you make sure it doesn't get dehydrated or live in parched soil. The human sanctuary that you are, you don't even think of yourself as that. I want to tell you what human sanctuaries have to have, and it's not my idea. My grandmother told me, and I'm going to share it with you. She said, Sarah, in order to have a life that is not very difficult, you've got to have 3 essential bones. And I had 2 sisters, and I wondered if only they would have the 3 essential bones, and I didn't. And she said the first one is, you've got to have a backbone. You've got to have a backbone that keeps you straight and living a purposeful life. That backbone has always got to be strong. And the second thing you've got to have is a wishbone. You've got to have a wishbone that fills you with such courage and determination and ability and strength and purpose. And you've got to have that wishbone that always is there. A new wish. When one is finished, another wish comes. Keep that wishbone alive. And I love the last one. And then you've got to have a funny bone. You've got to have a funny bone. You've got to have a funny bone that makes your heart sing when you think there's nothing left to sing about. So you make sure you keep those 3 bones. A backbone, a wishbone, and a funny bone. You work with people that may have forgotten that they have the 3 essential bones. You may forget that you need those 3 essential bones. There was a time that I even forgot that I had all of those 3 essential bones. I want to tell you a little bit about what it was. When I was a little girl of 10, growing up in a family that was a very intergenerational family, I heard on the radio with my two sisters that my father had been hurt at an accident. We heard it on the radio coming home from school. And when we got to our home, caring people were there like you. And my 10-year-old heart began to listen to them tell stories. And my 10-year-old heart began to say, I wonder why all of these people just showed up on today. Where are Mom and Dad? And then I learned that my mom was at the hospital with my dad, but they would be home tonight. I was trying to think, not then, but now. Which bone did I need? It wasn't the funny bone. It was the wishbone. It was the wishbone that maybe they'd come sooner than tonight. Because I didn't want them to miss seeing all of the people that just happened to arrive at our house on this particular day when my mom and dad weren't even there. But they began to tell stories. And you know what they said? They said stories that I'd never heard before. They even said, twins, did you know that on the day you were born, my job as a mailman wasn't just to put the mail in the mailbox. It was to knock on the door and say, the McRae's had baby twin daughters born today. That was the mail on that day. I knew my mom and dad didn't know that. So I was waiting for them to come home. And it was a long time. It was 10:30 that night. And only my mother came. And she walked in with my father's brother. And she greeted all of you like this. And she said, may I talk to my 3 daughters in private? And you know what she said? And I know now that she had backbone. She said, today at 3 o'clock, as your father was crossing the street from his business, he was struck by a car, a drunken driver. But she didn't really emphasize that. She said the man's name, and it was an ordinary name like John. And I began to think, she said, so today we are here to prepare the celebration from this home that we live in with your father to this home that he will live in. And she said, let's hold hands. She talked to us about it. She said a little prayer. And then she went out and she talked to you. And she said, the girls and I would like to ask your support as we wake up tomorrow and start again. I didn't know that was the backbone that she had. I didn't know that the wishbone was, can we dare do it? Can we wake up tomorrow and start again? That wish and that desire and those 3 bones remained in her with these 3 little girls that grew up to be old women now for her 96 years of age. Now, I didn't know when I became a teacher and then married and had this wonderful husband and 2 children that those 3 essential bones would be such a vital part of my growing and my being and of my sharing. When my husband and I met in Europe and were married, and we were both teachers in Europe, and we were married there, and then came back to live in America, I didn't realize after a great career as a professor for him And as a teacher for me, I thought it was the wishbone would, your wishes would be granted. He retired as a college professor. He retired, and he said to me, it's time for you to retire, Sarah. But I said, but I still love what I'm doing. And I have many more years I could teach. He said, you need to retire while they love you. He was a wise man. And I did. I didn't know that he was telling me which bone I needed to use now. And it was every one of them. Because it wasn't soon after he retired. Even prior to that, he had gone to teach a night class one time. And he didn't arrive. And the university called me and said, Sarah, Dr. Rowan didn't come tonight. Is he ill? And I said, oh no, he left to go. He will be there. But he wasn't there. And about an hour later, he came. And he was so tired. And he said, I was going to do something, and I started. But can you believe I forgot what it was? So I decided to come back home. It must not have been important. That was so unlike my husband. But that was just one day. The rest of the days were very good. It wasn't consistent. And I thought about it, but then I put it out of my mind. Because I know nothing like that could happen to my husband. Months later, the good, the bad, the doubting, the what if. Do you think it could really be true, Sarah? And then the diagnosis came. You know what it's like. When you know that something is happening, just to make the decision to get a diagnosis, it takes the backbone. It takes the wishbone to say, oh, I wish that I'm just not seeing what I'm seeing. And you forget where the funny bone is. You don't see anything funny about it. So I made this appointment at the Cleveland Clinic. And I said to my husband, Joseph, at this age, I guess we need a baseline evaluation of what our health is like and our future, what we can plan to do. And he said, why didn't you think of that sooner? That's a very good suggestion. You should have thought of that sooner. So we went. And on the day that we were leaving, he said, now, are you having an evaluation today too? And I said, and it came. No, today's Men's Day. I have to go back when it's Women's Day. This is just Men's Day evaluation. And on that Men's Day evaluation, I found out so many things about my husband that I did not know. And this was a man that I knew and loved. But I found so many things I did not know. I did not know when they told him to draw a clock that he was obsessed by what kind of clock. I did not know when they said, put numbers on the clock, that he said, numbers? What do you mean, numbers? And then they said, well, just 12, 1, 2, 3. So below this perfect clock, he put 12, 1, 2, 3. There was no more room on the bottom of the paper. He said, do you want me to turn the paper over and finish the numbers? They said, oh, no, you've done a great job. My heart was just like this. This is a man that was still very social, very happy, engaged in life. I didn't realize how hard he was working to make his world normal. I didn't know how much work it took. They told us the story that it would probably be cognitive impairment of the Alzheimer's type. And when they told my husband, you know what he said? I question that diagnosis. And they said, you may, but we think that's what it is. Jonathan, would you open that for me? And so life began. Thank you. Life began in a new way and a new day. I remembered what my mother with the backbone said. Let's begin the celebration. I began to think, how can I make my husband from this moment on feel celebrated every single day of this journey with him? We began. Now, this took a 10-year journey. So these stories are all from a 10-year journey. Some were there at the beginning and some are at the end. But they were part of the date of the celebration. And the one that I loved, one of the first ones, was going on a picnic. And he left the little picnic ground and he walked over into a little forest. He dug out a little tiny tree like a sapling. He brought it back to me and he said, here, Sarah, this little tree was about to be crushed between two stones. It's for you. I put it in a little Dixie cup. And I said, Joseph, what makes you the miracle that you are? And he touched me back and he said, what makes you the miracle that you are? I ask you that. What makes you the miracle that you are? As he said that to me, it fell into my spirit that if every word I whispered to him or to you or to my loved best friend or to my enemy, if every word I whispered was echoed back to me, would I feel like a butterfly celebrating? Or would I feel just tolerated? You and I don't want anybody to feel just tolerated. You know, at that time, I had two little chalices in my dining room on a little table. And every day I would just write on a little piece of paper a memory of that day. Sometimes it was a memory that would just bring a tear to your eye, and sometimes it was a memory that would just make you laugh and laugh and laugh. And I would just put them in these little cups. And one day they were rolling and they were flowing over. And I chose one and I picked it to see what it said. And it said, will you marry me? And it was the morning that we had come down for breakfast. And he said, Sarah, there's something I want to ask you. I don't know why I've been so slow in doing it. I thought about it for a long time. And I think today I'm going to ask you. I said, I'm ready, whatever it is. He said, would you marry me? I said, you better be sure, because I'm going to say yes. At that time, our daughter called from South Carolina. And I said, Melissa, guess what? Your dad just asked me to marry him. And I accepted. She said, Mom, put Dad on the telephone a minute. I need to talk to Dad. She said, Dad, I hear you've asked Mama to marry you. He said, oh, yes. I don't know why it took so long to ask her that. But she said yes. She said, Daddy, now let me tell you. She said, you need to buy Mom a nice engagement ring before you... I heard her. I said, oh, Melissa, don't tell him that. He might back out. I've already accepted. So, you know, there were so many fun things in it. So I began to look to see, what is going to be the thing today that's just going to make that funny bone go wild with excitement about celebrating this disease with my husband and as I walk with him in his journey of forgetfulness. Now, I told you that he was a professor. Now, professors don't really do silly things or aren't too relaxed with their classes. You know, they're very formal and they lecture. Well, my husband's lecturing days were over. He was doing things so much more fun. And he was so engaged with life. And he was doing things with such spontaneity because he lived in the moment now. So that's what he taught me, to live with him where he was. And that wasn't what's going to happen tomorrow. That is, today, here we are. Let's take a step into today. And I had not lived that way, really. I had thought about Saturday, not just Tuesday. And so we began to live in the moment and in the day. And the spontaneity of it was just so fun. So I knew he liked to go different places. He loved to ride in the car, and he loved, with his harmonica that he had had in World War II, he would take it with him wherever he'd go. And many times I'd actually try to hide it because I never knew when he was going to start playing this harmonica. You know, it could be in the midst of anything, and all of a sudden you'd hear harmonica, you know, in the room. And so I made this little card that said, and I would just put it in my pocket. It was very discreet and just very quiet, but it said in these words, my loved one has Alzheimer's. Thank you for understanding. So if I was going to a place that people might say, oh, get that weird couple out of here fast, I just quietly go up and give them this card. And you cannot believe how many doors of compassion, kindness, and love opened. It was so warming to me to just know that someone could see this strange couple and see my husband walking with forgetfulness and love him as I loved him, or respect him, or accept him. So one day we were going to this ball game, the Cleveland Indians, and he had cheered for the Cleveland Indians ever since he was a tiny little boy. They rarely won. Didn't matter to him. He still kept cheering them on. They had a new stadium. He had season tickets all of his life, just about. I never even knew too much about baseball, football, basketball. Didn't even enter my mind too much about this, but he loved them all. So I took him to this game. It was a new stadium. I got there early. You know, you always get there early when you're traveling with someone that walks with forgetfulness. And we got there early, and I was trying to show him all the things, and the players came on, and they announced the players. And the first person that got up hit a home run. I know that is good. I know that is good. So I got up and started clapping. He took my shirt like this, and he said, I think you should sit down. You're just making far too much noise. Far too much noise about this. He said, you need to sit down and be a little quieter. He said, there are people around here. You need to sit down and be a little bit quiet. Well, I saw him totally disengaged with the whole process as much as he had loved it. And I just wanted it to be a spark, you know, just a spark. All of a sudden, it might be just that spark that I was looking for. But after about the fourth inning, he said, this doesn't seem relevant to me, whatever they're doing. He said, let's go home, don't you think? I said, good idea, let's go home. We were listening to the game on the way home. And I said, oh, listen, Joe, they hit another home run. How did you like that? How did you like that game? He said, oh, it was okay. I would rather have seen baseball. I said, next time we will. That's what we'll go to see next time is baseball. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It wasn't long after that we were going to an event. Something fell off on a truck in front of us. Our car was just about disabled. We had to go limping a car about a quarter of a mile till we could stop. My husband was playing his harmonica the whole time. He didn't even know we were in distress. So it was my attitude and my spirit that would sustain him, whether he were endangered or whether he were just fine. So I stopped the car. Both tires were flattened. I said to Joseph, Joseph, as soon as we stopped the car, he said, why are we stopping? He didn't realize we were all in distress. I said, oh, we're going to have a picnic. He said, I don't want to have a picnic. I said, you're going to love this one. We've never had a picnic like this before. You're going to love this picnic. We have water in the back of the car, and we have a blanket. You take your harmonica and the blanket. I'm going to take the water. We climbed this hill right beside Interstate 71, sat on the blanket while he played his harmonica and drank water, and I called AAA to carry us back to our home, pull us back. We got in the truck. We came all the way back to my home. Talking about dead. I was the walking dead. He was still playing his harmonica. He did not realize that we had been through all of this. So as soon as we got into our house, he said, I loved that water picnic. He said, we should have another one of those sometime. He said, that was a great thing, that water picnic. The funny bone. You know, if you don't keep that funny bone so that it's sharp and ready to experience fun, whatever kind of fun it is, you keep that funny bone. Well, you know, the times happened, and you know well, we talked about it in so many of the workshops. And by the way, thank you so much for teaching me. I'm an old woman, but I love to learn. And you are such great teachers. Wherever I've been in the classes, I mean, I just got back from It's Never Too Late, and it's never too late for any of us to do anything. And wise leadership, you know, with Nancy. And I can't begin to thank you for what you did, because 10 years ago, I was walking a journey that wasn't the journey that I'm walking now. And if I were to go back and introduce myself to myself 10 years ago, I would be just looking for someone like you. I mean, to see if you were real, if you really knew what walking with forgetfulness meant. And did you know how to take families that are walking with forgetfulness and invite them in and teach them? That's where I was. And you know, my daily empowerment request was, help me find the people that can do it so well when he needs better care than he can get with me and at home. I advertised, actually, for a care partner. And I interviewed 7. But I didn't think they saw my husband. And I didn't even know the words to tell them. that my husband is still in this handsome frame, that he still has joys and he has fun. I hardly knew the words. I just wanted them to see it through me. And after I had interviewed the 7, a knock came on my door. It was a lady, a wonderful lady like you. And she said, Mrs. Rowan, I've heard that Dr. Rowan has Alzheimer's, and I've come to repay you for something you did for my son years ago. And I looked at her and I thought, oh my, did I teach her son? Is this one of the mothers that I loved their child? And I said, oh, tell me about that experience. I said, did I teach your son? She said, not in school, but in life. And she told me about an experience that her son and my life had crossed, and we had both been blessed at the time. That son had since died as a very young man. She had come in her grief just 5 months after saying goodbye to her own son to Dr. Rowan, may I care for you? Do you believe in miracles? I do. I said to her, Joanne, I wish I knew how to pose the questions that I need from you. I wish I knew how to pose the questions. She said, Sarah, would it help you to know that I understand dementia? I understand a journey of pain, and I understand a journey of joy. She said, would it help you to know that I will do everything for you, but breathe? You do that. And empower yourself. Breathe deeply. Can you believe that someone would offer that and then carry it out? You know, she understood him when he decided to take a walk with his dog. And he would walk 4 or 5 blocks. And then he'd come back with his dog. So one day I said to him, oh, Joseph, I'd like to go on those walks with you. He said, well, if you do, he said, you've got to pay attention or you're going to get lost. I said, oh, I'm following you. I said, oh, we're together. I won't get lost. I'm following you. And we took a 6-block walk around our neighborhood. And then all of a sudden he stopped real still. And he said, time to turn around. I said, how did you know that, Joe? I would have still kept going. I said, how did you know? He said, that chimney. I looked around. There were about 15 chimneys on houses all around. But he said, no, this is where I always stop to turn around. So we turned around and came home. The neighborhood journey didn't stay that short. He would decide sometimes in the middle of the night that he was going to take a trip. And I'd hear him getting ready to go. And I'd go and I'd say, Joseph, are you planning a trip without me? And he said, well, I want to go home. I want to go home. And I'd say, it's pretty dark out there now. You think we can leave in the morning? Well, if you think it's better, we'll leave in the morning. He'd say, the reason I want to go home, this place we're in is so primitive. And that woman that lives here, she doesn't know how to cook or anything. Don't tell her. Don't tell her. I think she's really pretty good, but she just doesn't know how to do a lot of things. But don't tell her. I just want to go home. I want to go home. So I began to see my husband as a homeless man. How long do we have to walk in our own homes, in our own lives, to find a home? Sometimes we're searching for a home our whole life, and it just magically appears. And sometimes we search, and it never seems like it's exactly right. Because home is internal. Home lives within us with our memories, with the securities we've had. The thing that I'd like to say to you is, you know the answers to those walking in forgetfulness. You are human sanctuaries. You've taught me more than I've ever learned in all of these years, just by seeing your presence, by seeing the way you live, by seeing the way you act, by seeing the way you take strangers into your midst and treat them as your family. I'd like to say that the whole journey with my husband was one that I could feel that he was nurtured inside of in his own home. But actually it didn't quite work out that way. Starting with the very first time I actually even had him go to a daycare. I was so excited about this beautiful daycare. So they said, Mrs. Rowan would like for you to do something for yourself and stay away for at least 6 hours. I came back in 4. In the lobby, I didn't see anybody at first, but there was a little note with my name on it. And I picked up the note, and it said, Mrs. Rowan, please do not bring Dr. Rowan back tomorrow. No charge. It wasn't what I expected, you know. I didn't know of a you then. But at the end of the journey, and nearing the end of the journey, we found a place called the Eden Alternative that practiced the philosophies of the Eden Alternative. And in that journey, I drove him from Ohio to Aiken, South Carolina, to find this place. We sang every song known to man 10 times. But we got there, and actually both of us were really excited and refreshed. He didn't seem to know that he had left one home to go to another. And when we got there was a little dog that greeted us. It was 11 o'clock at night. A little dog greeted us. And the dog was exactly the same type of little Sheltie that we had left in our own home. He picked up the little dog and he said, Mac, what are you doing out here like this? You need to be home. Come on in. He picked up the dog. He brought the dog. His service people helped him to go to his room. He slept all night with this little dog just on his chest. And he found home in an Eden Alternative community that I had never, ever even heard of the Eden Alternative. You see what 10, 12, 15 years, 3 years, 1 year can make in your life? And now I'm here with you. He was there for a year. Now, when he got there, it was such a different environment from the other home he had been in that he lectured every day at 10 o'clock. He didn't have a bell. He just thumped on the table. And he said, I'd like for everyone call you to attention. It's time for the lecture. And then he lectured them. Now, when he finished the lecture, he would take his little harmonica, and that would be the symbol that the lecture was over, then they could leave. I never knew what a good professor he was on this last assignment of his until much later with another experience. I met a man that I asked him where he was in his experiences. And he told me, well, I once worked at a home where the philosophy of that home was eliminating hopelessness, helplessness, loneliness, boredom. And I said to him, where was it? He said, Aiken, South Carolina, Mattie C. Hall. I said, oh, did you happen to know a patient there named Dr. Joseph Rowan? He said, oh, yes, ma'am. Everybody knew him. He said, he was a professor. He said he played his harmonica every day after the lectures. He said, now, after he finished the lectures and everybody was dismissed, he said he'd play his harmonica, then he'd walk over to the fish tank and drop it in the fish tank. And he said, my job was to go over and take it out of the fish tank and get it ready tomorrow for the next lecture. And you are taking care of the Josephs of the world. I want you to know, and I ask myself often, who will give you your last drink of water? And how will it be? What kind of final room do you want to be your final room? What do you want in it? What type of sounds will there be? I once thought that all beggars were just beggars. And even when I saw one with a bowl and thought, oh, a beggar? Now I know differently. We're all beggars. We're just too sophisticated to hold a beggar's bowl. But we're all hungry for what we need in life. Safety, security, nurturing, love. All of the things that we need. Tolstoy tells it so much better than I when he says he met a beggar. And he looked into the beggar's eyes as he put his hand into his pocket. And there was no money. So he said, I'm so sorry. I have no money, my brother. And the beggar said, you gave me more than I could have asked for. You call me my brother. You call me my sister. And on the very last days, when my husband was really nearing his home, I said to him, Joseph, you wanted to go home for so long. You're closer to home than you've ever been. You're just about there. Just a short path and you're home. Whenever you're ready, just knock and your family will open the door. You're just about home. We love you. You're the best grandpa, father, husband. We love you. But when you're ready to go home, just knock. That little frail arm lifted. And he knocked. And I said, Joseph, you're home. His last words were, how beautiful. How beautiful. That's what I want my last words to be. That's what I want your last words to be. How beautiful. You're creating it for me now. You're creating it for our world now. You're creating butterflies that will bring joy and majesty and beauty. That's what I want in my final room. Butterflies. Just flying everywhere like those white butterflies I saw here this weekend. It's in every one of us to be wise, to be pure. We just have to open up our eyes. It's in every one of us to be wise. I need to just teach you a song. Simple. I was a first grade teacher. You are rare and wonderful. La la la, la 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 la. You are rare and wonderful. La 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 la. Participation, please. You are rare and wonderful. La 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 la. You are rare and wonderful. La la la.
No more silence. We will shout it out. No more silence.